They called him trash. Threw food at him while he dug in their garbage. But today, he walked into the same school, in a suit. And bought the entire building. The same kids who laughed, now study under his name. The first time anyone noticed him, he was digging through a trash can behind Lincoln Hill Academy, the most elite prep school in the city. Darius was 15. Skinny. Quiet. Always wearing the same torn hoodie. The rich kids called him, Dumpster Boy. Yo, get a picture, someone laughed, snapping a photo as Darius crouched behind the cafeteria bin. He's trying to eat our leftovers. Another kid threw a sandwich crust at him. Darius didn't flinch. He just looked at them, straight in the eyes. And then went back to digging. The janitor told him to move along. The headmaster threatened to call the police. The students? They laughed. Mocked. Filmed him. Shared him on social media like a joke. But one person didn't laugh. Her name was Ms. Carter, an English teacher with kind eyes and a worn-out notebook. She noticed that every night, after the staff left, Darius would sneak into the unlocked hallway window, not to steal. Not to vandalize. To read. She caught him once, crouched in the back of the library, flipping through a used biology textbook. He froze, expecting her to scream. But instead, she asked gently, "Do you understand what you're reading?" He nodded. "It's about cell division. Mitosis." She raised an eyebrow. And from that moment on, she started leaving books on the back steps. Algebra. Shakespeare. Computer science. He never spoke much. But every book disappeared by morning. Still, the bullying got worse. One day, they cornered him in the parking lot. Dumped a soda on his head. Called him, future prisoner. One boy even said, "You'll never belong here, trash boy." That night, Darius didn't return to the alley. He disappeared. No one knew where he went. Most of them didn't care. But Ms. Carter kept leaving the books. Just in case. What she didn't know was that Darius hadn't disappeared. He had decided to fight. A week passed. Then two. The alley behind Lincoln Hill Academy stayed empty. The students forgot about him. A new prank video went viral. New gossip. New drama. But Ms. Carter kept looking out her classroom window. She still left books wrapped in plastic on the back step. Biology. Programming. Economics. Until one rainy day, the books stopped disappearing. That's when she knew. He was really gone. What she didn't know, what no one knew, was that Darius hadn't vanished. He'd simply moved 2 blocks away. Into the abandoned backroom of a laundromat, with a cracked floor and one working power outlet. He stole Wi-Fi from the coffee shop next door. And he was coding. He had learned JavaScript from a soaked textbook. Now he was building things. Simple apps at first. Then more complex ones. Every night, he slept with a laptop someone had thrown away. The screen flickered. The keys were missing letters. But it worked. And Darius worked too, harder than anyone. He remembered the words those kids said to him. "You'll never belong here. You're trash." He memorized them like fuel. He told himself. "If they think I don't belong in their world, I'll build one they can't enter." And that's what he did. He created an app called Study Stack, a sleek little learning tool using flashcards and gamification. He posted it to an online forum one night and went to bed hungry. By morning, it had 10,000 downloads. By the end of the month, it hit 1 million. Then came the emails. Then the offer. A quiet investor in New York sent a simple message. "I think you're a genius. Let's talk." Darius didn't reply at first. He wasn't ready. But by age 17, he had made his first million. He didn't buy chains. Or cars. He bought silence. He disappeared again, but this time, upward. The world never noticed the homeless boy was gone. But Ms. Carter. She remembered. She kept a photo of him taped in her lesson plan journal. Just his back, walking away with a tattered backpack. Every time a student failed or gave up, she'd look at it. And whisper, "Come back someday, Darius. Show them who you are." 10 years later, the gates of Lincoln Hill Academy opened on a Monday morning like any other. Students in crisp uniforms filed in, chatting about vacations, luxury cars, new phones. They didn't notice the sleek black car that parked across the street. The door opened. A man stepped out, tall, sharp, quiet. He wore a tailored black suit. No jewelry. No entourage. But his presence stopped the security guard mid-sentence. It was Darius. No longer a boy. No longer a shadow behind a dumpster. He walked toward the school slowly, eyes scanning the bricks, the windows, the alley he used to sleep in. Nothing had changed. But he had. Inside the principal's office, a staff meeting was underway. "I don't care if she taught here for 20 years, the headmaster barked. Ms. Carter's too soft. She's retiring next semester anyway. She's the only teacher with a 100% student recommendation score," someone mumbled. "She gives books to janitors," he scoffed. "She doesn't understand our image." Just then, the secretary entered. "There's someone here to see you." The headmaster didn't look up. "Send them away. She says it's urgent." She. The office door opened, and in walked a woman in a navy blazer with the name of a billion-dollar firm embroidered on her sleeve. "My client would like to make a private offer for Lincoln Hill Academy," she said calmly. The room froze. "I beg your pardon," the headmaster said. "We are prepared to purchase the land, facilities, staff contracts, and curriculum rights. In full." "Is this a joke?" She handed over a folder. Inside, a letter of intent. Backed by a holding company no one recognized. At the bottom, a signature. Darius J. Knox. The headmaster blinked. It couldn't be. But it was. The homeless boy they mocked. The boy they called trash. The one who used to sneak into their library. Was now the man who owned the land their chairs were sitting on. And he wasn't just here for revenge. He had one request before signing anything. "Where's Ms. Carter?" Ms. Carter lived in a small brick house just 5 minutes from the school. Same worn-out welcome mat. Same wind chimes on the porch. Same hydrangeas she used to clip for her classroom desk. When the doorbell rang, she didn't expect a ghost from her past. She opened the door and gasped. At first, she didn't recognize him, tall, confident, grown. But then she saw the eyes. "Darius," she whispered. He smiled. She stepped forward slowly. "My God. Look at you." "I never got to say thank you," he said, voice steady. "For the books. For the silence. For not calling the police." She blinked back tears. "I always wondered what happened to you." "I built something," he said. "And now I've come to return something." He pulled out a folder. She didn't even glance at it. She just looked at him. "I knew you were something special," she said. Darius shook his head gently. "No. I wasn't. I was angry. Cold. I wanted to burn the whole school down." "Then why didn't you?" He smiled faintly. "Because you left the light on." She looked confused. "The back light," he explained. "Every night. When I'd sneak through the alley, the back porch light was always on. Even when you weren't there. Even when it rained." Her eyes widened. I thought maybe you were leaving it for me. Ms. Carter's voice trembled. I was. They stood in silence. Then he handed her the folder. What is this? A deed transfer, he said. You're the new head of Foundation Affairs. The entire scholarship program, you run it. You decide who gets a chance. Who gets seen. I'm retiring, she said, overwhelmed. Then retire, he said. But your legacy won't. Ms. Carter's hands shook. They tried to fire me last month. They won't now, he replied. They work for you. She looked at the boy she once fed peanut butter crackers in secret. And now he was changing the system, for kids like he used to be. Why are you really doing this, Darius? He paused. Because I was invisible in that school. But I saw everything. Word spread fast. By the time the students arrived for lunch, the campus buzzed with whispers. Did you hear? The school's getting bought. Some tech guy. Real secretive. Bet he's another old white guy in a tie. But when Darius stepped out of the black car and onto the quad in broad daylight, wearing that crisp suit and calm expression, a hush fell over the crowd. The same boys who had once poured soda on his head. Now seniors, taller, louder, but suddenly quiet. One of them squinted. No way. That's the kid from the dumpster, another whispered. Darius walked past them. He didn't stop. Didn't flinch. But he saw them. And they saw him. Ms. Carter stood on the steps with the headmaster, watching it all unfold. The headmaster forced a smile. You didn't say your friend was the buyer. She smiled back. You didn't ask. They walked into the auditorium, where the press conference was about to begin. Cameras clicked. Journalists murmured. The banner behind the podium read. A new chapter for Lincoln Hill Academy. Darius stood at the mic. He scanned the room. I used to sleep in your alley, he began. Some of you remember. Most of you looked away. Gasps rippled through the students. I was 15. Homeless. Alone. And this school. It mocked me. Threw food at me. Called me trash. He paused. But I used that. Every insult. Every cold night. Every locked door. Now the room was dead silent. I came back because someone once left the light on. And that light changed my life. Ms. Carter's eyes glistened. That's why I'm not just buying Lincoln Hill. I'm remaking it. He held up a folder. Effective immediately, we're launching the Carter Scholars Program, full-ride scholarships for underprivileged students. Every year. No exceptions. The headmaster shifted nervously. And one more thing, Darius added, looking directly at the seniors in the front row. I remember every face. Then he smiled. But I'm not here to punish you. I'm here to make sure no kid ever feels like I did. After the press conference, the school was buzzing. News cameras packed the lawn. Students texted under desks. Teachers whispered in corners. And in the headmaster's office, tempers boiled. You can't just rewrite history, the headmaster snapped, slamming the folder on his desk. Darius stood calm, hands behind his back. I'm not rewriting it, he said. I'm just making sure the next chapter doesn't look like the last. I've built this institution for 30 years. On exclusion, Darius interrupted. On legacy admissions, tuition walls, and pretending kids like me don't exist. You're still angry, the headmaster said. You're emotional. That's dangerous. I'm not emotional, Darius replied. I'm intentional. Behind him, Ms. Carter stepped forward. I believe what Darius is doing is right. This school needs equity, not entitlement. The headmaster turned red. You were always too soft. Giving books to janitors. Letting riffraff into your classroom. Like Darius? She asked. That silenced him. Darius pulled out another file. My legal team reviewed the original land deeds. Turns out, the alley behind the cafeteria where I used to sleep. That was part of the school's property. You knew. And you left me there. The headmaster blinked. Technically, Darius continued, you abandoned a minor on school grounds. The room froze. He didn't press the threat. He didn't need to. He turned to Ms. Carter. You'll lead the scholarship review board. First round starts next month. What about the staff who disagree? She asked. Darius didn't flinch. They're welcome to find schools that still pretend money makes greatness. The next day, 3 teachers resigned. And 10 students applied for the Carter Scholars Program, not for themselves, but to sponsor kids they knew from their neighborhoods, churches, shelters. One girl wrote. There's a girl who walks 3 miles just to read in our library window. She reminds me of him. Darius read it twice. Then smiled. The change had already begun. Late that night, Darius walked the empty halls of Lincoln Hill Academy alone. He passed the lockers where boys once slammed him against the wall. The cafeteria where they threw food at him. The library window he used to press his face against, watching warmth and knowledge just out of reach. He reached the back exit. The same metal door he used to sneak through after dark, when no one was watching, when his stomach growled so loud it hurt. He stepped outside and stood in front of the dumpster. The cold concrete was still cracked the same way. He knelt. Ran his fingers over it. And remembered. It was the night it rained so hard the alley flooded. He was soaked. Freezing. Coughing. His hoodie stuck to his back. A senior had just spit in his face hours before. He had no food. No blanket. Just a biology book Ms. Carter had left, wrapped in a plastic bag. He lit a candle stub inside a soda can and huddled beneath a broken umbrella. And he cried. Not because of the cold. Because of the shame. Maybe they're right, he whispered. Maybe I am trash. Then, his fingers touched the page. The word regeneration. He read about starfish. Salamanders. How living things could regrow what was lost. It sparked something. If they won't let me be part of their world, he said aloud. I'll build a world where kids like me never have to beg to be seen. And that night, soaked and shivering, Darius made a vow. He would never again ask to be let in. He would own the keys. Back in the present, he stood up slowly. The alley was cleaner now. Lit by a motion light. But the pain lingered like smoke. Ms. Carter stepped out behind him. You okay? She asked. He nodded, eyes moist. Just visiting my roots. She smiled softly. They're deep. Darius looked up at the school. No, he said. They're growing. The first Carter Scholars open house was packed. Dozens of families lined the school lawn, black, Latino, Asian, poor, immigrant, disabled. Kids in hand-me-down shoes. Mothers holding forms with shaking hands. Darius stood at the entrance in a black blazer, welcoming each one with a handshake. No GPA requirement, he told a nervous boy. No essays, he smiled at a young girl. Just honesty. A mother started crying. We've never been inside a place like this. Well, Darius said, you're home now. Inside, former Lincoln Hill students were helping as volunteers, some ashamed of who they used to be. Others inspired. Ms. Carter handed out brochures with pride. But not everyone was smiling. In the back of the crowd, Bryce Maddox leaned against a tree. He hadn't changed much, same arrogant smirk, now in a Wall Street suit. He was one of the seniors who used to humiliate Darius. Now, he worked for a company Darius quietly owned stock in. Bryce watched the whole scene like a bad dream. He waited until Darius stood alone by the refreshment table. Then he approached. "Well," Bryce said, "look who got a glow-up." Darius turned, calm. "I know what you're doing," Bryce said. "Trying to be some savior. Rewrite your sad little origin story." "I'm not rewriting anything," Darius said. "Just funding the truth." Bryce leaned in, voice low. "You think one check erases who you were? You'll always be that dumpster kid." Darius smiled gently. "And you'll always be the kid who needed someone to look down on to feel tall." Bryce scoffed. "You're soft now." "No," Darius said, eyes steady. "I'm strong enough to build, without destroying." He walked away. Bryce called after him, "You'll never be one of us." Darius stopped. Turned slightly. "I never wanted to be." Then he stepped onto the podium and tapped the mic. The crowd hushed. He looked out over the sea of hopeful faces. "This school used to be a fortress," he said. "Now, it's a bridge." Applause erupted. Bryce faded into the shadows, exactly where he used to push Darius. 3 weeks into the program, lives were already changing. Kids who had never stepped foot in a classroom like Lincoln Hill were solving equations, writing poems, building robots. The air on campus was different. Lighter. Brighter. But behind the scenes, a storm was building. Bryce hadn't let it go. He began digging. Social media. Old city records. Homeless reports. Anything. Until he found it. A photo. Grainy. Old. It showed a 15-year-old Darius curled behind a dumpster, hoodie soaked, holding a stolen apple. Below it, a police report. Vandalism. Trespassing. Petty theft. He printed it out. Brought it to the school board's emergency meeting. "He lied to you," Bryce said. "This is who he really is. A criminal. A trespasser. A thief." Some board members murmured. "He never even graduated from here," Bryce added. "How can someone who didn't finish school run one?" The headmaster, still clinging to influence, nodded slowly. The media could turn this into a scandal. But one hand went up. "Ms. Carter." She stood calmly. "Are we really doing this?" "He broke the law," Bryce snapped. She stepped forward, holding the photo. "Look at this. Really look." The room went silent. "That's not a thief. That's a child. A child we failed. A child who read textbooks while he starved. Who taught himself code. Who built an empire while the world ignored him." She turned to Bryce. "And you're still trying to bury what you don't understand." Bryce tried to speak, but the room had turned. Ms. Carter placed the photo back in her folder. Then said quietly, "He didn't hide anything. We just never bothered to ask." That night, Darius sat in his office. Ms. Carter entered and placed the photo on his desk. He stared at it. The pain. The memory. "Thank you for defending me," he said. "You shouldn't need defending anymore," she replied. He looked at her. Then at the photo. "I'm going to frame it," he whispered. Ms. Carter blinked. "Why?" "Because it reminds me of why I started." The photo now hung in Darius's office, front and center. Visitors would pause, unsure what it meant. Some whispered, "Is that really him?" Others just stared. But to Darius, it wasn't shame. It was armor. Each morning, before answering emails or reviewing scholarship applicants, he'd glance at it. The boy behind the dumpster. The one everyone wanted to forget. He never would. That morning, a mother arrived in his office. Nervous. Hands folded. eyes wide. Her son, Devin, had just been accepted into the Carter Scholars Program. 12 years old. Quiet. Wore his shoes until the soles peeled off. I just wanted to say thank you, she said. He's never smiled this much. Darius smiled gently. Tell him to keep showing up. As she turned to leave, she paused. That photo, she asked softly. Is it real? He nodded. She studied it. I know that face. That hunger. That kind of cold. Then, before she left, she added, you didn't cover it up. That means something. When she was gone, Darius sat in silence. Her words echoed. You didn't cover it up. In the hallway, kids buzzed past lockers. Some were from old money families, legacy students now coexisting with scholarship kids. It wasn't always smooth. Some tension. Some whispers. But something was happening. In the computer lab, Darius watched as Devin, the boy with the old shoes, stood at the whiteboard, solving a code puzzle in front of a full class. A few of the rich kids scoffed at first. Until he solved it. Flawlessly. The room went still. Even the teacher blinked. Devin just sat down quietly. No bragging. Just brilliance. After class, Darius pulled him aside. You like code? He asked. Devin shrugged. It's easier than people. Darius smiled. I used to feel the same. He handed him a worn-out book. One he'd kept for years. Devin flipped it open. Inside the front cover, property of Lincoln Hill Library. Devin looked confused. I never checked it out, Darius said. Couldn't. But I read it 100 times. Devin grinned. You stole it? He asked. No, Darius replied. It stole me. Brought me somewhere else. He placed a hand on Devin's shoulder. Let it take you further. While the Carter Scholars Program was gaining praise, not everyone applauded. In a country club across town, Bryce sat at a white-clothed table with the headmaster and two old money board donors. They sipped wine. And plotted. He's making us look like villains, Bryce said. Turning the school into a charity case. The older man beside him grunted. It was never meant for kids like that. The woman beside him nodded. We can't pull funding directly. The media would crucify us. Bryce leaned in. But what if he's not who he says he is? They looked at him. I've been digging into his app company. Study Stack. Turns out, it was registered offshore. No college degree. No formal credentials. If we raise enough questions. The headmaster finally spoke. We can make him disappear again. They clinked glasses. Back at Lincoln Hill, Darius was in the science lab with Devin. They were coding a new learning game for incoming students. Devin's eyes lit up as he explained his idea. Darius just smiled. He saw himself in this boy, and not just in brilliance, but in how much he wanted to prove he belonged. Suddenly, Miss Carter rushed in with a tablet. Darius, you need to see this. He took it. Front page headline. Tech billionaire behind Lincoln Hill faced juvenile charges, questionable business start. The article tore into his past. Digging up the trespassing photo. Calling his company lucky. Accusing him of hiding assets. Claiming the Carter Scholars Program was a PR stunt. Darius felt the heat rise in his chest. He sat down slowly. Devin looked scared. Am I getting kicked out? He whispered. Darius looked at him. And his voice was calm. No. You're just getting started. That night, Darius sat alone in his office. The old photo on the wall stared back at him. He felt the weight of it all return. The cold alley. The laughter. The hunger. But this time, he wasn't alone. Ms. Carter entered quietly. "You okay?" Darius looked up. "They want to bury me again." She stepped closer. "Then dig deeper. Because this time, you have an army behind you." The next morning, Darius stood in front of the media. No PR team. No lawyer. Just him, under the bright sun, behind the school he once slept beside. Reporters shouted questions. "Did you lie about your education? Were you arrested as a teen? Is your company legitimate?" He raised a hand. Calm. Steady. "Yes," he said. "I was homeless. I was arrested. I was hungry. And I didn't have the luxury of college." Cameras flashed. "But I had books. I had code. And I had a will to survive that no degree could teach." He stepped aside. Behind him, a projector screen lit up. One by one, he showed documents. The juvenile record, dismissed. The coding forums where he posted projects under anonymous names. The patent filings. The partnership contracts with tech companies now worth billions. "Let them read it all," he said. "Because none of it is a lie. It's just not the kind of story you're used to hearing from someone who looks like me." Inside, the students watched on live stream. Even the legacy kids. Devin sat in the front row, shoulders back, eyes wide. Someone beside him, a boy who once mocked him, leaned over and whispered, "That's your mentor?" Devin smiled proudly. "That's our founder." Ms. Carter sat in the front row of the press circle, hands folded. When it ended, Darius walked to her. "They'll come harder now," he said. "They always do," she replied. "But this time," he said softly, "I'm not running." She placed her hand on his shoulder. "You were never running, Darius. You were building." That evening, the Carter Scholars applications tripled. Hundreds of messages poured in. "Your story saved my son. My daughter wants to be the next you. Thank you for not hiding your past." And one message. From a boy in Detroit. Attached was a picture. A trash pile. A backpack. And a book. No words. Just an emoji, raised fist medium dark skin tone. Darius stared at it for a long time. Then replied. "Read until they can't ignore you." The headmaster sat in his office, watching the press conference replay on his laptop. Each word hit like a hammer. He paused the video on Darius's face. The boy they ignored. The one they laughed at. Now, a man standing taller than all of them, not in anger, but in truth. He poured himself a drink, but it trembled in his hand. A knock at the door. Ms. Carter stepped in. He didn't look up. "I suppose you're here to say, 'I told you so.'" She shook her head. "No. I'm here to return this." She placed a folder on the desk. "Your resignation packet?" he asked. "No," she said. "Yours." He froze. "It's time," she said. "This place needs leaders who don't see kids as files, but as futures." He looked up, eyes weary. "I thought we were building excellence." She nodded. "We were. But only for a few." He exhaled slowly. Then, quietly, "Was I really that blind?" Ms. Carter's voice softened. "No. You just refused to see." Elsewhere, Bryce walked through the hallway. His phone buzzed, job offer revoked. Another investor pulled out. A whisper campaign had started, but not from Darius. From people who now saw who Bryce really was. He passed the scholarship students, laughing, working, dreaming. No one looked at him. And for the first time, he understood what it meant to be invisible. That afternoon, Darius visited the old alley one last time. He stood where he once slept, now cleared, clean, with a mural on the wall. Painted by scholarship kids. It showed a boy in a hoodie reaching toward a glowing laptop. And beneath it, in bold letters. Not trash. Not weak. Just unseen. A small crowd gathered behind him. Students. Parents. Teachers. Ms. Carter stepped beside him. "You good?" she asked. He nodded. "I was always here," he whispered. "They just chose not to see me." She smiled gently. "Now the world can't look away." 1 year later. Lincoln Hill Academy looked different. Not in the architecture, the columns still stood tall, the halls still echoed, but in the faces. Brown, black, tan, tired, dreaming. Kids who once thought places like this weren't built for them now walked the marble floors like they belonged. Because now, they did. In the auditorium, a new class of Carter scholars sat in their caps and gowns. The first graduating class under Darius's leadership. At the podium, he adjusted the mic and looked out at them, faces filled with nerves, hope, pride. "Most people think success looks like money, titles, fame," he said. "But real success." He paused. "It's when the kids who never had a seat, now sit where you once stood." He pointed to the front row, where the school's old board members once sat. Now. Devin sat there, 13 years old, legs swinging, coding laptop in his bag. Next to him, his mother beamed. Behind them, the crowd stood, community members, journalists, former doubters now turned believers. After the ceremony, a little girl approached Darius, no older than 9. "Are you the man who used to live in the garbage?" Darius chuckled. "I guess you could say that." She frowned. "Why didn't they let you in the school?" He knelt to her level. "Because they didn't know what I could become." She thought about that. "Did you forgive them?" He smiled. "I didn't come back for revenge." He glanced at the stage. At the students. At the mural outside. At the future walking through the doors. "I came back to leave the door open." That night, the hallway lights flickered off. But one stayed on, above the back exit door. The same one Miss Carter once kept glowing. This time, it stayed lit for every kid still walking through shadows. Every Devin. Every Darius.